Welcome to another episode of I Am Nala podcast. Our new season centers around the one and only the vagina. Everyone seems to have a say, but women, especially survivors, who have been unseen, unheard, and silenced for too long. Here we bring the conversation back to its foundation, to talk about the vagina's health, consent, and agency, by survivors themselves and advocates for survivor-centered conversations. The stories of being and becoming as African feminists. Today, we sit with a media powerhouse, one of Kenya's most versatile voices across radio, television, and digital platforms. She's a storyteller, content creator, and a journalist who has used her voice to both entertain and advocate. From the airwaves of Capital FM to the digital desk of CGTN, she's seen how media can shape culture and drive empathy. Today, we talk about the power and responsibility of the storyteller. Our Nala is Laura Walubengo. In 3 words, who is Laura?
Laura is fun. Laura is happy, and Laura is love. Yeah,
Love her.
like I'm really getting to the point where I'm trying to owe people nothing but love. Yeah.
I love that. So, Laura, how powerful is the vagina?
Wow, it's quite powerful. It has, since time immemorial, caused a lot of wars in different parts of the world, in completely different cultures. So it's not unique to any different country. It is extremely powerful. Even the fact that it gives life, that can make people faint when they watch it. If you think about it like a channel, it can be taken advantage of. It can be reduced in terms of how powerful it is to be controlled. But then if treated well, I guess, then it can be free and it can be beautiful and it can be quite powerful. Yeah.
100%. I'm curious, what kind of child were you? Like loud, vocal, or shy? Minding her business?
A bit of both. I grew up as the last born of 11 kids. So just by virtue of that, you have to have your voice heard. Yeah. So you have to be loud. But then I was also loud because I was quite gifted. So I was gifted in terms of creativity. I could get instruments really fast. I could sing. I was also really good in sports. So I was all round gifted.
What did you play?
And I was in athletics. Yeah, so I was a sprinter. So it's hard to believe, but I was a sprinter growing up. I was also good with people in school. I was loud in the fact that I was confident in who I was, and then I had to assert myself at home.
Yeah. And your other siblings, male, female?
We're 5 girls, 6 boys.
Okay.
5 girls, 6 boys.
Almost parity. Okay, I want to play a game with you.
Okay.
It's called Rapid Fire Warm-Up.
Okay.
So, coffee or tea? What's your
Coffee, black coffee.
Did you like my coffee?
Yes, Arabic coffee with star anise, pretty good.
The last book or article that changed your perspective on something?
That happens a lot. But I'll go with Atomic Habits because it was difficult for me. When you want to make a change, you have to do it right then. You don't say, I'll start next month. So that was a difficult truth for me to pick.
If you weren't in the media, what would you be doing right now?
I'd be an artist. Yeah.
What?
Drawing, painting. Yeah. That's what I see myself, I see myself somewhere, I don't know, in the woods somewhere with a big easel, painting, So I think that's what
That's why you go to auctions?
Yeah, because you see beautiful things, things that they don't make anymore. Beauty that was functional. So yeah.
We should do sip and paint sometime.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a very Kenyan thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't know if they have coffee though. But
we'll take our coffee with
there
us.
we go.
one word that people would describe you that you wouldn't agree with.
I like people, but I don't like crowded places.
And people assume you're comfortable with
Yeah,
these
yeah.
places.
So I'd literally go to a meeting early so that I don't find too many people. And it's not that I don't like people, so I don't know what that is. Yeah.
So you ditch people in parties?
Yeah, I might not say it, but
All right, let's talk about your storytelling career. You've worked in digital media, TV, radio. What do you think the most platforms that have been really creative in telling stories and maybe using less harm in conveying these stories?
I've always been fascinated by the audio version of things. I think maybe because when I started my career in the media, I started on radio. And I was on radio for about 12 years. And so it was interesting for me to transport people to a place using sound. So if you're somewhere and you want to show that it's the countryside, maybe there's a river somewhere, maybe there's cows. So you have to factor in what that environment would look like. And in that way, apart from just the words you use, it's interesting to try and see how to tell the story. I mean, visual is always good because it helps people get immersed into it, but radio gives you a lot more creativity. And so for me, I think medium-wise, that's big. However, digital is really powerful in that it helps you understand people because you never really know what people like. So if you have a digital platform and you have a picture of a duck flying away and you have a picture of a really beautiful lion, but people like the duck, it makes you really think, what is it about digital? What is it about people that attracts them to different things? Yes.
In storytelling, what's the difference between centering pain or displaying pain or spotlighting pain and centering agency?
When you say agency, what do you mean?
So, there are different stories that can portray a certain crisis, certain story, certain narrative, where it's focused on victimizing whoever is the protagonist of the story. And there are the same exact person we are talking about, other narrative that really centers their agency, their power, their strength, how they overcome. In general, there is an African narrative and maybe about women as well, of being the woman who struggles, the woman in the market, the woman who's going through war, going through sexual gender-based violence, which is, yes, she goes through that, but not saying how does she overcome it, how resilient she is, how powerful she is. In storytelling and these different mediums you navigated, how do you see the difference that these platforms use to either choose that or that?
I think it really comes out in terms of perception. The perception of the person talking to the victim or talking to the subject. Because if you put your own perception into their story, you'll focus on the pain, but you'll try and maybe give a reason to the pain. But the reason is how you believe it to be. When you're talking to someone, it's very important for them to say exactly how they feel. Let's say, for example, someone says that they ran and broke their leg. It's not up to you whether them breaking their leg was a big deal or not. They ran and they broke their leg, and that's their story. And the most you can do is just let the integrity of that story be and not be judgmental. By judgmental meaning putting your own opinion on it. And I think it's such a delicate balance because it's hard to live as a human being and not be opinionated. But to let somebody give you their story actually also gives them a chance to show you a different side of the same story. It could be a story you've seen since you were born. But now because they're experiencing it, it's a different version. And so you have to understand it from that perspective. So I think when it comes to the different digital agencies, I mean, digital, audiovisual, audio, the only difference is the person asking the questions. Do you have a preconceived notion? And if you do, could you leave it outside the door? Because this is the star of the show. And the star of the show really is in about how they feel about things. You could see a nice little teddy bear on TV. It doesn't matter if you like the color. Yeah. Whatever the other person is talking about, then that's how you should see that teddy bear. It's very easy to focus on pain and sort of glorify
sexy news.
Yeah.
Is there any story about women in Kenya that frustrated you? You've seen the story and like, that's not how you report a story.
Even just recently in the news, we had the vetting happening of the new gender CS, and she was talking about women. I mean, we've had some really bad numbers in Kenya, about 129 women being killed by either their partners. And so she mentioned that one of the reasons that happened for this particular girl was that, looking for money. They were looking for money. And it sort of trivializes the whole thing. If you're trying to give a reason to something, how can you give a reason to the loss of life? How can you say you lost your life because of this? The focus should be somebody took your life. Yeah. Why did they take your life?
The perpetrator.
Yeah. The onus is not on you to prove your innocence as a dead person. On the other side is what you need to focus on. When it comes to something like that, if you look at it from the perspective of the media, it's not the media house maybe giving their opinion of the story. It's them airing somebody else's opinion, which is not really wrong. But then sometimes it can be dangerous. I don't think there's much you can do about that. You really don't know anybody's opinion until they say it. There are a lot of stories, but the issue I always have is when you get to the point where people say this happened because of this, and they weren't even there. They don't even know the story. They don't even know how those two people related. So it's a lot of the reporting can seem really unfair. One of my favorite IG pages, it's called Usikimye. Usikimye is Swahili for don't keep silent. And they tell stories of women, kids, and even men who've been mistreated in a certain domestic environment mostly. And they tell the story as your story, the person who is the victim. So if it's somebody who died, then they say, we will say your name, we will not forget your name. It gives power to this person's story and doesn't put you in a statistic.
Yeah, exactly. That's centering agency. I mean, there's a lot happened in Kenya around femicide, the recent protests, gender-based violence. Like you said, also it's a huge conversation, the political class. What is a story you're proud of that you reported in any of these mediums that you thought, good job there, Laura?
Well, I mean, personally, I haven't reported on the subject. I think most of the personal stories that I used to do were centered around mental health and creative joy when it comes to music and art. I would just gravitate towards this particular IG page because what they try and do is also partner with different celebrities to show you how easy it is for the story to change, for the story to flip. But they try and preserve the integrity of the woman, of the child, and of even the men that get that become victims of violence. So they try and just protect you as an individual. So I would say at least 70% of the stories on there would be stories that I would encourage a lot of people to just look at and understand how it is that you can report a story from a point of agency and not pain.
So when you compare that page with mainstream media, maybe even in Africa, I mean, you've been in this space for quite a while.
Yeah.
Do you see a pattern of how survivor gender-based violence and issues in general around violence, sexual violence are reported? Do you see a shift? Do you see change?
I see patterns in responses. So I see patterns in how police maybe respond to the cases. I see patterns in how community responds to the cases. If you look at it, apart from them being individual, it's almost easy to say that the stories are the same because you say this has happened, who is the perpetrator, who is the victim, the person is innocent until proven guilty. The cops don't want to touch that case because they're like, you don't know what happens between two people. Or they say that, nobody should go around dressed like that at 5 p.m. or at 3 p.m. or at 8, 9 in the morning. So I think when it comes to how the stories are reported, I can't say that I've seen anything specifically different. But what really pops out to me is the biases that we have as a community. and the biases that we have as even the gender desks in the police stations, which is something that was introduced to reduce the number of femicide and gender-based violence. It's not as effective because maybe we're not looking at the root issue, which is our biases and our preoccupations with how things happen.
That's a great point. So since you started in this career in journalism and throughout the years and right now, what are the challenges you face just because of your gender?
So when I started out, I was very young. I was 20. It's not like these days when 20 you're actually, I don't know how many years into your career. Yeah, I know. But that time I was pretty young at 20 to be in a newsroom, and it was male dominated. We're probably about 80% male, 20% female. The argument that I was always in is, do you really know what you're doing? Yeah, that it was always a thing. And I really wondered why. I'm like, how would you not know? Why would I be here if I didn't know what I was doing? I think it's really improved because you've had so many women in the media industry just coming out as roaring lionesses, and you have to listen to what they're saying, and you can see that the impact they're having in society. So I think it was quite male dominated, and you really had to assert yourself as a woman. And if you're looking for a promotion, it instead of going through the back door, now you can actually just fight for it on the table. And I think it has really improved over time. It was 20 years ago. So right now it's almost equal footing. The lack of equity comes in, I think, in an individual capacity, one-on-one, where there are some instances where somebody feels like you should just listen, but it's not as much as it used to be. I think it's evening out. Yeah.
And do you think there is sexual harassment in this industry, and
definitely,
violence against women?
Definitely, because you get a lot of spaces where you do have men and women alone in certain late night shoots, or you have to go out of town to a remote place. There have been cases of just harassment, and I can't point to any individually. I mean, there's stories that you're told, of course, that and a lot of people don't want to share when something like that happens to them. They'd probably say, I don't want to be on assignment with so-and-so, or you just decide not to work with a particular photographer or producer. And that's just how it is. There are very few places where you feel safe. It has to be a relationship that you've built over time. So sexual harassment is there. It happens. And it actually happens across so many different industries, and it's more or less in the same context. Yeah,
I think we also need to recognize that women find themselves in such situations because of the system of patriarchy that was created. Girls and boys are raised within this framework of the system that favor one gender over the other.
Yeah.
You had a very interesting experience in your family, which completely disrupts the system. Tell us about it.
Like I said, we're many kids, and I have 6 brothers, but there was equal distribution of duty in the house. So my dad would make sure that the boys would cook and clean as well. I was the younger one, so I never cooked and cleaned.
The spoiled.
Yeah, it's okay.
I accept that. I am too. I'm not a child.
There we go.
Spoiled in different ways.
My brothers, because of that, they know how to cook. They know how to clean. Yeah. Even if they didn't like it, it wasn't just a preserve of the girls in the house. And I thought that was really forward thinking of my dad. And it's quite interesting that we put it that way, forward thinking. And yet that should just be how it is. Yeah. But at the same time, for my sisters who wanted to get their masters, like past a degree, they had to fight for it. Because my dad is like, you have a degree, what do you need a master's for? And my sister's like, I want to get a master's. So I think because he had so many daughters, and to him, education was really important, and he saw the potential of his daughters, I think that helped to to change his mind about things. He was actually the only one of his brothers with one wife. So maybe that says something. But when it comes to patriarchy as a whole, it's very difficult to break because there's a lot of elements to it that have come down over millennia, even, for lack of a better word. So there's a lot of entitlement there that I guess can only be broken down maybe by the men themselves. It has to come from a deeper point of understanding. Yeah.
And there was this incident that happened in Kenya.
Yeah, I mean, so just recently, there's a girl who got into an argument with the boyfriend. He killed her, chopped her up, put her in a suitcase, went with a suitcase into his dorm and tried to sleep on it, and it was uncomfortable, so he put it under the bed, and then he disposed of it, I think, the next day near a water tank. And he was talking about it on his Facebook, and he said, yeah, I killed her because why wasn't she responding to my messages? How do you break something like that? How do you say this is not it? It's a difficult equation, but it has to happen. It has to happen.
Yeah, maybe raising our boys and girls differently, different values.
Yeah,
that they're equal.
Yeah, exactly.
And also raising a word that is free of violence in general towards any human.
It's funny. I saw something the other day where it was a forward. It's like, what would happen if there were no men in the world? And there's a guy who responded to it and said, who would be there to protect you? And this lady's like, protect me from what?
Exactly.
And it's really sad because it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We just hurting somebody else, just doesn't make sense at all. There's really no reason for it.
There is a whole lot of literature about this concept of protection, because if there was no violence against women, there is no protection. But I have to walk at night with a male guardian because I am vulnerable to this and that, and I have to do this. But at the essence of it is like, we don't need protection. And if we had a word free from violence, why would I need it? That is exactly the system we have to dismantle.
Yeah.
If we build a world free of violence, then maybe we get somewhere where women feel confident to be in places and spaces without feeling second-class citizens.
Can I tell you something I learned the other day? I have a friend, someone I know, who works in an organization where they try and fight, violence against women and children. And they're only just trying to raise the matter now that violence against women and violence against children are two different things, but they're often put together because of the domestic setting. By the time you attack a child and by the time you attack a woman, those are different things that you've told yourself are okay. I think there's a lot more to unpack. And unfortunately, there is the issue of trauma. If the trauma isn't dealt with, even from all sides, then the violence will keep happening. Because somebody sees something when they were 12 years old and they haven't dealt with it. So by the time you're 30, you have a warped view of how things need to be. It does start with a kid, whether you're giving them life lessons or whether how you're treating them. That's, I guess, where we can change things.
Generation.
Just answered my own question. That's where we can change patriarchy from the bottom. I was dreaming the other day that we were teaching boys how to be nicer to girls.
Maybe we should open a school. Yes, let's start a trauma healing center.
There we go.
What's a story you haven't told that you wish you would?
About myself or?
In general, in your storytelling journey.
I think it is about trauma, about human weakness, and about human strength from the weakness. Because most of our strength comes from our weaknesses. So the strength that we don't need is the bravado that we see most of the time. But the weaknesses and how we deal with the weaknesses is where our strength comes from. Getting to that place where that it's usually from a point of fear. And the fear, it usually comes from somewhere else. I'm always interested to talk to people who've committed crimes to see where that came from. And also, when it comes to substance abuse, trying to understand where human weakness comes from and why you need to overcome it to be strong. So I think there are a lot of stories like that where people do things that they don't want to do. So those are the stories I would really like to tell.
So 5 years from now, if a young woman would say that you inspired her to go into journalism, what would be the one thing that you would want her to say, I learned this from you?
I think the most important lesson I learned as a journalist, and I would love anybody that wants to practice journalism to understand, is that whatever they say is powerful and influential. Whatever, you carry a responsibility to be as truthful as possible, because what you're saying will be taken as truth. It is an issue that I have also with a lot of politicians, either know or don't know the power that they have to actually influence society for the better. As a journalist, people believe what you say. So you have a responsibility to say the truth and to make sure you're telling the right stories so you can have a positive influence in society. That's very important.
Yeah, I mean, media is the fourth state, like they say, right? So
There you
it's
go.
pretty influential. You've seen a lot of stories in your career in journalism around sexual gender-based violence survivors, survivors of war, survivors of 2007, 2008 post-election violence. What would be your love letter to SGBV survivor from the diverse stories that you've seen reported on different platforms?
My love note to them would be, whatever happened to you was not because of you, and you can get over it, and you can be stronger than the place of weakness that you were placed in. You're not alone. There's so many others like you, and you'll be okay. Even just listen to the word sexual violence. It's almost like the deepest form of invasion, because this is you. This is your house. This is your temple. You have to live with it. So you have to make your house right again. And how do you do that? So I would just tell them that you can make your house right again.
So we always end with, you're okay?
Yeah. It's horrible what people go through.
We always end with I am Nala, because so Nala is the lioness and you are one of those roaring voices through your storytelling, through using your platforms, using your creativity. So why are you Nala?
I am Nala because I'm strong. I'm Nala because I'm strong in my strength, and I'm Nala because I'm strong in my weakness. And I'm Nala because I help other people to be strong where I can. And I think that's the biggest thing you can do for people, to help them be strong, because you've learned how to be strong. So I'm Nala also because I love lions. I like that you say that, because I've never thought of myself as Nala before, but I don't mind. I don't mind the comparison.
Let's claim it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Is there anything else I haven't asked that you wanted to share?
I think we're good. I think it's important for media to realize how powerful they are, and it's important for people to realize how strong they can be.
Thank you so much. Laura.
Thank you. I'm very happy I met you.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.